Okay. Wait. That would be the way the devil would do it, wouldn't it? He's got a really cool voice, really like a. It's not a very scary voice at all. Why would you be afraid of him? You could make a deal with it with that voice, and then all of a sudden, you know what I mean? He goes, "Oh, hey, yourself, what happened? Nice to meet you." Make that trust in yourself? I sure did. Like, oh no, I'm going down the fifth where I feel safe. I did too!
I was fine where I was. It was
Oh man.
much scarier prospect. But that's the Satan.
Shield generator gamma is at 75%.
As soon as he said hello, I was like, fine.
Yes, I can actually be thinking of it like that. He's more like a godfather. Who was the first person that was alive? Like, we give it a name, and 15, 16, you know. Yeah, fuck it, man. You guys can go on about it. Just bring your stuff up, you know, you guys can play first, whatever. Every scene has that one person that really is like the glue, and the one guy that really pushes everyone to keep going and not give up. And Mario's that dude. I think he always wished for more for everyone, including himself. And when it starts to spiral and become something that's not as cool, and is a little more bonehead, it starts to become an animal that can't be controlled by a single person. It was very primal. He didn't know what was going to happen. He didn't know if he was going to get, you know, the cops are going to break it up. You know, there was always fights. Things just kind of worked themselves out. After a little while, we were like, hey, let's do some parties. You know, so we said, well, what's up with the generator? You know, just take it. I can't use it. You guys can use it though as much as you want. And so we cleaned it up, got it running, and I mean, the next weekend we were out throwing a party with it. We would drive up this dirt road for 20 minutes, and here was this Greek ruin-looking thing that was essentially the raddest pool you could ever imagine for skating. I mean, just, it really was so far away from reality. I mean, you were nowhere near anything. You couldn't see a building. You couldn't see a light. We called it was the nudist colony.
The nudist colony was out in the desert. There used to be a nudist colony there. The building had crumbled. There was a pool that was left, and everybody skated the pool.
It had originally been called the Desert Hills Nudist Ranch. Is myth and legend has it. It had closed down sometime in the mid-70s, and it just sat there.
It was ours. So when you got there, it was something that we could put a flag in and just say, hey, man, you know, let's go there.
Before the rock and roll happened, we'd be up there skateboarding. In fact, it was so hard to find a place to practice. As soon as we started practicing at houses, cops would show up. So we'd actually start practicing up there. And then next thing you know, it's a huge party.
We actually saw us out. They were just such a great punk band. And we were like, fuck, man, it's just no need to try and carry the punk rock torch on Sound as it wired because they were so great. So we kind of went in the opposite direction. In the desert, if you sound like someone else, you were going to get made fun of, you know. You see these people the next day at school. It's not like you can walk away from it and start over again. These are people you see all the time. So there was that importance on originality. That was one cool thing about Desert. You could play with, like, Yanni Man and then Unsound, they play the same bill. A progressive jazz band. And then a punk rock band. If you ask me, like, the one quality about Unsound, I would say we had good energy on stage that went farther than just the four of us. It
went outwards, people could feel that. We all had such a united sense of oneness. That's what identified us or illuminated our peer group, was simply that, you get this? Do you understand what we've got here? It's special. Special enough to maybe make some records for it. What would have been a normal question that you would have come to quickly, like, let's record and maybe we can do this, really took a long time to get to that first phase of asking yourself a question like, should we record this?
It wasn't based in any kind of like, yeah, this band, you know, they're going places, you know? It was just like, it felt like you were doing something for yourself, not just doing something for somebody else's approval or benefit. Like that, as much as anything else, made me like want to do it.
You're not recording your music anyway. You're not making music.
For me, it's a Friday night. It's a Saturday night. It's like not for money or for chicks or fame or shit. It's just you play because that's what you do. It never seemed like anything more was ever come out of it. Freedom. More freedom, man. The punk rockers. You want to do what you want to do. We didn't let anybody tell us.
Like I said, every scene
we just went out and did it. We didn't give a fuck about the consequences of the cops.
This right
Those
here.
parties just took on their own life.
Every scene had their own sound, man. They should have fucking hit up Michigan for this third wave of speed metal bands, because we had the potential to really sell them, because we actually had the memorable riffs and choruses, and some of the other ones didn't, you know, and where they were going to, you know. But they ended up slowing down to get to, and we didn't.
This has to do with a woman by the name of Catherine A. discovered us, and she offered to manage us. A friend of ours, dad had played drums at the Osmonds and things like that. He was like, well, I know a studio up here in Orange County. And we went there and recorded, and the woman that was the studio manager, she was like, I'll manage you.
It's the Sons of Caius demo. I got it, and then I got the Sons of Caius album, which was the Caius' first album. Great shit, great stoner rock.
So actually had the chance, like, let's go to LA, or let's go anywhere. I was like, let's do it.
Almost excellent. It was once they became this, that it was, the name became Caius itself. So the Sons of Caius, they just changed it to, you know, focus on the change in the band too.
We did not see us play. No, you guys are great. Like, when? Where? Tell me where. Because when I was in the band, there wasn't a whole lot of people coming to see us. We went out and we got some notoriety, although people hated it for most of the time that we were around. And the reaction of us getting signed was mixed.
They're from the desert, but they were removed because they all of a sudden got signed to a major label and became part of that machine. You know, they can have managers and publicists and people doing everything for them, and rightfully so. They rock, they're great. It's amazing what happened.
The scene was so personal to everyone that understandably some people were like, what are you doing? You know, does that even happen? Is that okay? You know, we've never dealt with this situation. I need a ruling. And also, the scene was like, do well, but don't do too well. I'm sure there were some local bands, but nobody was really going for it, like recording, putting out records. And I knew these kids were really serious, and they wanted it. We rehearsed 6 days a week for 7 or 8 hours a day. We could play our songs inside and out, change them at a moment's notice, because it was like, that's what you do. Let's go try. If we fail, we fail. Let's just go play. There's no, you know, there's people because they can't hear so many other way. You know, we got to go take a jump. In 1992, the guy that was the singer of my punk band when I lived back in Virginia, Scream, he told me to go see this show that was coming into town. I was living in Seattle. The Obsessed, that were a rock band, really heavy band from Washington, D.C., were on tour with this band, Caius. When they started playing, I immediately knew something was different because I couldn't tell what type of person each person was. Like, Nick was wearing these greasy fucking stained gray sweatpants with high tops and no shirt, and his hair was down to his ass and it looked like he hadn't washed it in a year. Durant sort of looked like he was in a fucking Cheech and Chong movie or something. And then Josh looked like he played baseball or something. He looked kind of like a real American kid. And John, it was funny, like he would sing, but then he would lay back and they would go off on these jams that were just instrumental, which is unusual in like the underground punk rock scene or whatever. They would go off on these jams that were fucking amazing. Soon after that, I went and bought Blues for the Red Sun. And I was just totally blown away. Nirvana was going out when Blues for the Red Sun came out. And Dave Grohl was a godsend for Kyuss. In the wake of Nirvana, people's attention and taste were really brought to this music in a way that really never happened before. Now it's like the masses are there. I think I bought that record for at least 20 people and just gave it to them. I gave it to my friends in Santa Cruz. I gave it to someone in Metallica. I gave it to my neighbors. I was just like, this is the fucking most incredible record. You have to hear this. Everyone agreed, you know. He was raving about it in Spin Magazine.